Welcome back, Ways and Weavers, to Challenge and Doge, where today I'm doing another video on NGU Idol. Now, in my introductory video, I explained all the game's mechanics and menus in short, at least as far as you unlock before you fight the first Titan. I planned in future to do individual videos on the different menus unlocked for beating the Titans, and I plan to do them in order. However, honestly, there is one menu I am more excited to talk about than any other, and so I just wanted to jump right to it. The only reason this could be a bad idea is that some of the previous menus I haven't made a video explaining yet will come up. However, honestly, the only two ones that come up related to beards are ones that, while it would take a while to explain in full everything they do, I can give you the gist in like 5 seconds. And so, since I really wanted to do a video on the game's Beards of Power, I thought, fuck it, if I want to do it, let me do it. I'm going to jump straight to it. The Beards of Power are my favourite menu in the game, and you unlock them for defeating Ugg the Unmentionable, the 4th Titan in NGU Idol. So let's just start by thoroughly explaining what beards do exactly. Beards essentially act as places that energy or magic beyond the cap can overflow into to improve other in-game stats. As the overflowing energy and magic fills these bars, it levels up the beards to grant better bonuses. There are 2 stats which directly affect beard leveling speed, and that would be energy and magic power and energy and magic bars. Out of the 2, if beard speed is the priority, then bars is the far superior stat to invest in. The power stat does help, but in the equation that they use to calculate beard speed, they reduce the power stat to the square root of itself, meaning its effectiveness has diminishing returns. The more power you invest, the less benefit you get for investing more power. Whereas that isn't true for bars. For reference, this is the same level of diminishing returns that energy power also has in the advanced training menu. Because, and I wouldn't blame you if you missed this, because I did it first, you actually have diminishing returns on your energy power in the advanced training menu as well. It's a bit weird. You wouldn't have known unless you read the "What the fuck do I do" page on it. In fact, I believe it's literally the only menu in the game where this applies, but it's there. Anyway, you have a limited amount of slots for active beards, which will increase over time as you progress. You must activate your beards to get their bonuses and level them up. Even if you did build up a bonus, if you then deactivate the beard, the boost will disappear until you reactivate it. For this reason, while you do have the option to switch beards mid-run, it's almost always most efficient in most cases to select your beards from the beginning of the run the second you start a new rebirth, and wait until the next rebirth before you try swapping your beards. Although the penalty for swapping beards mid-run isn't too bad, because beards level slower the higher their level gets, and each beard will begin to have diminishing returns beyond level 1000. The formulas for their progression differ from beard to beard. The active bonus alone is significant, but more important often are the permanent bonuses. The permanent buffs are powerful. Being permanent, they persist between runs, but even more important is that they also work even while the beard is inactive. When you click rebirth, the beards are shaved, and the trimmings create your permanent bonus. More level equals more permanent bonus, although the same square root diminishing returns from earlier apply to this. The permanent bonus also grants diminishing returns beyond level 1000. They also stack multiplicatively with the active bonus. So if you have, I don't know, a 200% bonus to your gold output, and then a permanent bonus of 150%, that would add together to get a 300% bonus to your gold output. Beards in general are insanely powerful, and none of them are really weak, but by the same token, you also only have so many slots to work with. And that makes ranking them really hard, especially because even the worst of beards are still deserving of some levels thanks to the diminishing returns issue. Even if one beard was ludicrously more useful than the rest, you would still need to level the rest, because the more you invest into one beard, the less you get out of it. With all that in mind, let's get into the ranking. So, as I already mentioned earlier, there are 2 types of beard in this menu. The energy beards and the magic beards. And not only do they work on different resources, but they tend to work on different themes as well. Magic beards tend to help you make more direct progress in a run, and there couldn't be a better example of that than the very first beard, the Fu Manchu. The Fu Manchu is the fastest leveling beard in the game, and for each level it gains, it boosts your attack and defense by a further 5%. permanent levels only give 1% each. It's also the only beard in the game which does not have any diminishing returns beyond level 1000, both for active and permanent levels, at least not beyond the already existing inherent diminishing returns of continuously adding 5% and 5%. You know, going from 100 to 105% is a lot more impactful than going from 5,000 to 5,005%. This beard is straightforward but crucially important, so much so you will essentially never want to deactivate it, and so it makes it to the S tier. Barely, at S-. This beard was initially my pick for best beard in the game, and it stayed that way for a long time, until only recently, while preparing to make this video, I had to question some of my preconceptions about this beard, and realized that there were maybe some other beards in the game that outpaced it. That being said, yeah, I do basically never deactivate this beard, which I feel like is good enough to put it somewhere in the S tier, even if maybe it's not the best beard in the game. Plain and simple, turning this beard on is a free pass through an extra 2 to 3 bosses in every run. That free progress is not only convenient, but also essentially results in a number boost. Beating 3 more bosses leads to an 8 times higher number for your next rebirth. Beyond that, just generally, permanent stat boosts are ever crucial in this game. They are essentially the single most important stat to boost in the game for the sake of the majority of its challenges. For most of the challenges in the game, it's helpful. For the 24-hour challenge, it's a crucial speed boost. For the Troll challenge, where it's critical to get in and out fast before your NGUs break, it's practically a requirement to beat it. And for the No Rebirth challenge, it is a hard requirement to get it to stand a chance, because the whole point of the No Rebirth challenge is that you can only rely on your hard stats and not your number. Challenges are one of the game's single most important forms of meta progression, and so the rewards are bountiful and important. As a result, the Fu Manchu is so great because it is both a short-term boost to your stats while also being a long-term investment that in the long run gets you more XP, AP, and other permanent upgrades by how it helps to carry you through challenges. Its only downside is that it does do a bit of a poor job of keeping pace with the scaling of boss stats. Even getting it into the thousands of levels, you're only looking at 3 extra bosses or so. This is still fine due to the amount of number that grants, but I am talking about this as someone who has not yet moved on to evil difficulty, at which point the number boost per boss is reduced to a 1.5 multiplier. As a result, it's possible that this beard drops off on the harder difficulties. But speaking of someone just ending off normal mode at the moment, this beard is never getting deactivated in my runs, so I still feel confident leaving it at S-. Make sure you're strapped in for this one, because I'm going to be here a while. Energy beards tend to help less in making direct progress in a run, but instead focus on meta progression, making progress through the game by helping you attain more permanent boosts to your stats that are maintained between runs. And the Neckbeard is the first of them, as well as being the fastest leveling energy beard, though it does level at a rate 3 times slower than the Fu Manchu. Keep in mind though that while it may go 3 times slower, energy is also 3 times cheaper to upgrade than magic, so if your energy bars are significantly higher, it's possible for the leveling speed of this beard to outpace the Fu Manchu. Overall though, this beard is very hard to evaluate the worth of, because it has so many polarizing upsides and downsides that fight against each other aggressively. On one hand, getting new equipment whenever you're able to is one of the fastest ways to progress. And so drop chance is very important, as the drop rates of new equipment continues to plummet lower and lower as the game progresses. On the other hand, if you're patient enough, the gear you're looking for will drop eventually, beard or no beard. And when you consider that in combination with the fact that later into the game, the time it takes to get enough adventure stats to take on the next area gets longer and longer, oftentimes if you're patient, you can spend your time leveling other beards and still get the equipment you need by the time you're able to actually move on. Drop chance overall is a very fickle stat. It almost never sits still, jumping from near useless to irreplaceably valuable depending on the point of the game you're at. For another example of the beard's ups and downs, it also levels very fast, and drop chance has quite a lot of things that can buff it that all stack multiplicatively, whether it be equipment, NGUs, perks, or the effects of this beard itself, meaning that the Neckbeard gives big boosts quick in total. On the other hand, man, do those boosts drop off hard. This beard gets to level 1000 fast, sure, but only gives a 50% boost to your drop chance even at level 1000. Not insignificant, but also not a whole lot. Beyond there, it only gets worse, fast too. The formula for a beard's diminishing returns might look complicated, but it's not too hard once you break it down. The important part is that the beard's bonus is now raised to the power of a number, either 0.3 or 0.5. That number depends on the beard. For reference, the reason they do this is to create a curve of diminishing returns, and when you plot it onto a graph to represent it visually, it looks like this for 0.3. This beard is 0.33, which looks like this. And many of the other beards in the game are 0.5, which looks like this. The rest of this complicated mumbo-jumbo is just to make sure that this curve starts from the correct point, because the boost with this curve needs to be at the same spot as the normal leveling by level 1000, since that's the point at which the leveling system switches over. We don't want the number to suddenly jump up or down when you switch between the permanent level scaling and the normal level scaling. As mentioned earlier, the Neckbeard is one of the unfortunate few beards that has the less than 0.5 curve. So that was a lot to take in at once, so take a step back to recap and make it clear what the problem is here. Problem: it barely gets much of a boost per level. Upside: well, it evens out because it levels super fast, especially if you invest a lot into energy, which is nice and cheap. Problem again though, leveling faster means it hits the diminishing returns faster, and this beard has some of the harshest and least rewarding diminishing returns out of all of the options in the game. That could maybe be fine if the permanent leveling of this beard progressed at a decent rate, because the permanent level increase upon rebirth is calculated by taking the square root of your beard level and multiplying it by a value which depends on how long your run has been going. Which means you could still get a pretty good permanent level by going beyond level 1000, as that harsh curve only applies to the bonus you get, not the level itself. Unfortunately, the bonus from the permanent levels also drops off hard and fast, gaining very little per rebirth even as you break your beard levels into the pentuple digits. Can you see why this beard is so hard to rank now? Nothing about this beard is middling to me. It all feels amazing or awful. This beard is a good example of why I decided to make this tier list so specific. Because initially, when I didn't have plus or minus tiers, this was just going to end up in C tier. Over time though, I felt like that really wasn't very accurate. It was certainly lower than the other beards that I had put in B tier, and yet it didn't feel right to put it in the C tier, because it was definitely valuable overall. Eventually I came to the conclusion that this beard belongs in B- tier. I feel like this beard is probably the one you'll have to put the most thought and effort into using out of all the 7 beards in the game. It's probably the one you'll be disabling and re-enabling the most often between runs. It's good for short runs and whenever you reach a brand new area of the game that you need to get drops from. It's also important to keep your drop chance topped up from time to time, since it always will eventually become a more coveted resource again somewhere down the line, no matter how useless it might feel right now. But on the other hand, for longer runs, the returns are disappointing. I feel like the best way to use this beard is to plan to use it as little as possible, but then swap to it either for the shorter runs where slower beards wouldn't be able to get significant levels in time, or swap to it once you reach new areas and titans to get that gear. Whenever else, it seems best to invest in other energy beards. The reverse Hitler is the second magic beard, and levels at the same speed as the Neckbeard. Thankfully, it should be a lot quicker to cover, because this beard is just straight up really good with not much more nuance. For each level, it provides a 1% boost to your number upon rebirth, meaning that by level 1000, you'll be gaining 11 times higher the normal number on rebirth. Even once diminishing returns are hit, the boost is raised to the power of 0.5, meaning that diminishing returns are much better than with the Neckbeard. As usual, this multiplies with the permanent bonus, which leads to some huge bonuses in total. The reverse Hitler is probably the single most effective beard in the game when it comes to simply making progress. That being said, the Fu Manchu is still going to rank higher, mostly because it's usually more helpful in challenges, but for pure non-challenge progression, this beard certainly does better. If you're in a challenge which forces rapid rebirths like the Troll challenge or 24-hour challenge, or just disables rebirths entirely like the No Rebirth challenge, it's hard to get value from this beard. The Fu Manchu, on the other hand, yields more immediate returns, but ultimately grants only 4 to 8 times the number in the long run, rather than the 11 plus of this beard. One of the only downsides here is that while the diminishing returns on this beard aren't too harsh, the permanent levels progress 10 times slower than the active levels, meaning that it takes a long time to even get a small permanent boost to your number. Although it's still more than worth it overall, as even small boosts scale really hard early on. Overall, that sits this beard solidly in the A tier, as a beard that you will barely ever be disabling, and certainly never will be disabling once you have more slots. Now, before I move on to the next beard in the list, The next two are actually going to cover two menus I haven't explained yet. And while there are a bunch of complexities to them, the short version is pretty simple. The next two beards are going to boost the leveling speed in the NGU and Wandoos menus. Both menus unlocked for beating the first Titan that I haven't covered yet. The Wandoos menu essentially acts as a place to dump your energy and magic. All there is a place to dump energy and a place to dump magic, and the more energy you put in or the more magic you put in, the faster the bars fill. Whenever the bars fill, it contributes to a percentage boost to your attack and defense. It's essentially sort of like the augments menu, except everything is free, but there are other downsides. One of them being that energy power and magic power don't do anything in this menu. The only thing that does anything is having more energy or more magic. And the other downside being that Wandoos has a 1 hour boot up time and needs to boot back up every time you click rebirth. If you try and use it before it's fully booted up, you'll suffer some severe penalties to your leveling speed. That being said, it's also important to know that once you unlock Wandoos, you'll get two new options in the advanced training menu, which allow you to level up the energy or magic speed of Wandoos to add a percentage bonus to the leveling speeds. The NGU menu, on the other hand, is a menu filled with a bunch of bars that can be filled with either energy or magic, and every time you fill them, you will get an extremely small incremental buff to a certain stat. But the reason why this menu is supposed to be valuable, despite how small the buffs are, is because of the fact that the buffs are permanent. Whenever you click rebirth, you keep all your NGU buffs. And so generally, leveling up NGUs is one of the most effective ways to make permanent progress in the entire game. With that said, let's move on to the next couple beards. The Beard Cage is the second energy beard and levels 333% slower than the Neckbeard and Reverse Hitler. It boosts your NGU leveling speed, an enormously powerful and crucial stat to boost for long-term permanent progress, and of course, that means there always has to be a catch. And unfortunately, there sure is a pretty big one for this beard. The boosts on this beard are unfortunately quite negligible. Each level of this beard only provides a 0.01% speed boost to your NGU leveling speed, a barely noticeable crumb of progression. Even hitting level 1000 only grants a measly 10% speed boost to your NGUs, and trying to go beyond, once again, leads to you being struck down by the mighty hammer of diminishing returns. The slope is once again the 0.3 power slope, which is the more flat one which gives more harsh diminishing returns. Investing another 1000 levels to get from level 1000 to level 2000 only takes you from a 10% speed boost to your NGUs to about a 12.5% speed boost. Truth be told, I honestly feel that this beard is pretty awful to use actively as a beard to get faster NGU levels, and genuinely would have been a candidate for C or even D tier. Thankfully, it does redeem itself with its permanent levels. While permanent levels are naturally earned more slowly than active ones, unlike beards like the Reverse Hitler, which only give 10 times less reward per perma level, the Beard Cage actually gives twice the boost for each perma level compared to the active levels. That being said, the progression of this beard is still gruelingly slow, unfortunately, but NGU speed is still a crucial stat to improve. As a result, typically you want to have this one enabled at all times that you aren't using the Neckbeard. You want to use it on the long runs you don't want to be using the Neckbeard anyway, and you want to use it once you have the gear you're looking for and are working more on NGUs to make progress. This combination of underwhelming and slow returns, but on a stat so important, and with the permanent levels eventually adding up, it makes this a beard you have active most, but not all of the time, making for a strong B+ tier beard. At the end of the day, for as much as it can feel like it does nothing in the moment, it is true that the 37.5% permanent NGU speed I currently have on this beard effectively acts as a 37.5% boost to basically all of my stats in the entire game, which, added all together, realistically, that is doing quite a fucking lot. But man, I have to admit, it doesn't feel like it when you're using this beard. It really feels like this beard is doing nothing. Don't fall for that trap though. If you're not using the Neckbeard, and if you have the beard slots, you want this beard active as often as possible, although you can afford to deactivate it every now and then. Again, especially for shorter runs where you don't plan to level NGUs anyway. The Ladybeard is the third magic beard, and levels at the same speed as the Beard Cage. Each level grants a 0.1% speed boost to your Wandoos leveling speed for both energy and magic, doubling the speed in total by level 1000. In theory, the Ladybeard may seem to be the ultimate progression beard, as it simply improves your ability to gain more stats rather than simply giving you more stats flatly. In practice, I think the Ladybeard is actually the worst beard in the game. Now, credit where it's due, diminishing returns are less harsh than the beard cage and the neckbeard, because this beard scaling is the 0.5 slope. It also has the same surprisingly efficient perma-level bonuses as the beard cage, as the Ladybeard also actually gets double the bonus from perma-levels as active ones. That being said, aside from the perma-levels being good, the admirable aspects basically end there. The leveling speed of this beard is slower than the other magic beards that help with progression, so it needs to be putting in more work to be worthwhile. But there are an enormous amount of factors that mitigate this beard's effectiveness. In theory, if you have a good long run where it goes to level 1000, it should provide quite a significant bonus to your progression, and do much better than the other two beards. The problem is, again, what happens in practice. For one, this beard is only helpful when your Wandoos runs at a relatively medium speed, so to speak. If your Wandoos is running extremely slowly, then even doubling the speed will probably still result in you sitting waiting for hours to get 1 or 2 Wandoos levels. And even if you did do that, you probably have to sit in that same run for so many hours to get that value that you will have lost more value by not doing more frequent and efficient rebirths, as it's most efficient to rebirth every 1 or 2 hours rather than do it every couple days or whatever. If your Wandoos is running fast, on the other hand, you might quickly hit the cap. This game does not physically allow you to gain more than 50 levels per second by filling any bar in the game, including the energy and magic dumps in Wandoos, no matter how much faster you make it run. As a starting point to not be useless, this beard requires your Wandoo speed to be in that sweet spot. Too slow, and it would require so much investment to give any bonus that by the time you do so, you're sacrificing the quality of your rebirths. But also not so fast that you're not actually getting anything by making it run faster, except that it takes less energy or magic to keep it running at maximum speed, but the speed doesn't change. Worse still, as I mentioned earlier, the advanced training menu exists and allows you to level your Wandoo speed without using the Ladybeard. If you hold on to the ring of utility you get from defeating Ugg, the titan you had to defeat to unlock beards in the first place anyway, you also get double leveling speed in that menu. And that double leveling speed allows you to shoot your Wandoo speed up to the cap with around half an hour of preparation for a huge stat boost over the course of an entire run. Not to mention, that same item incidentally also doubles your Wandoo speed. The speed boost that you'll get from that menu will far surpass the boost that you will get from the Ladybeard. I made it a regular habit to simply level in that menu until both my energy and magic speed in Wandoos through the advanced training menu was getting around a 20,000% boost, at which point it would already be leveling 50 times a second on both bars. And that way I wouldn't need the Ladybeard, and again, that is something that takes some time, but again, it would usually only take about 25 minutes, half an hour. Well worth it for the boost you're getting. Not to mention that boost I just mentioned, a 20,000% speed boost is much faster than the boost that the Ladybeard would have provided of only 200%. Essentially, the only value in the Ladybeard is racking up perma levels in it for the permanent bonus, but even then, just reaching the 1000 perma level mark with the diminishing returns kick in is more than enough, honestly. Personally, as I'm recording this, my Ladybeard perma bonus is only sitting at 380%, with only just over 1000 perma levels in it, the bare minimum to get to the diminishing returns point. And yet, with all the other speed boosts from NGUs and equipment, with about a minute of advanced training leveling, I can cap the level speed of my Wandoos XL, the highest and slowest level of Wandoos. As a result, for me right now, this beard is truly useless. At the very least though, assuming all of those conditions are met, it can be true that the Ladybeard scales and progresses more effectively than the other magic beards. But there's just one more huge issue. Wandoos takes a whole hour to boot up. Once again, this makes it near useless for basically every challenge in the game except the no rebirth challenge, as most challenges are best done with rapid rebirths, and some even force it, like the Troll Challenge and often 24-hour challenge. With all that said, you might have expected this beard to end up in F tier. However, the existence of both diminishing returns and perma levels means that no beard can ever truly be useless, unless the boost it provides is completely irrelevant in all contexts. The Ladybeard ranks the lowest because its benefit is the one which is useful in the least amount of situations. But at the end of the day, Wandoo's speed does matter sometimes. and so long as it matters at all, it can't really be F tier. For that reason, I feel like D tier is most fitting for this beard. The Beard is the slowest beard in the game, leveling 3 times slower than the Beard Cage and Ladybeard. It grants a 0.1% boost to your stats in adventure mode per level, doubling your stats by level 1000. Beyond level 1000, the diminishing returns follow the 0.3 curve. Strangely, this beard actually has a different curve for the perma levels though. The perma levels only give half the stat bonus per level, but also follow the 0.5 curve. So in total, they scale better than the active levels despite only giving half as much as a flat value. And the beard is going to be my pick for S tier. When you first unlock the beard's menu, you might use it sparingly, especially considering it's the slowest beard in the game and you probably don't have that many energy bars right now, and so maybe you don't want to sit here waiting forever for it to get to level 1000 or whatever. Earlier in the game as well, it's not as pressing to scale up your adventure stats as hard as you can. That being said, as soon as you have 3 or 4 beard slots, you essentially never want to deactivate this beard. I could get into the complicated reasons why, but to be frank, I think the most important reason is the most simple, so let's just mostly hinge my argument on that. The whole reason that energy beards are valuable is because they provide benefits that help you make permanent progress in the game. And what are the 2 best ways to make permanent progress in this game? Well, one would be challenges, and the other would be titans. While both are valuable, defeating titans is certainly the more valuable of the 2. Now consider this. What beards help you out a lot in a challenge? The Fu Manchu, definitely. The Reverse Hitler may drop off in rapid rebirth challenges, but outside of that remains pretty effective, and even within those does something, just not as much. The Ladybeard is also helpful in the right challenge. Hell, in a roundabout way, even the Beard Cage is kinda good for challenges, as the best way to prepare for a challenge is to level up your NGUs usually. Now, what beards help you defeat titans? Well, for the most part, only one. The Beard. Sure, maybe you get a better gear faster with the Neckbeard, or get some small incremental adventure stats through NGUs via the Beard Cage. But in terms of direct and substantial help, the Beard is your only option in the entire game to help you with Titan fights. That combined with the good perma-level scaling means there is no time where you do not want to be grinding this beard, because you will never not care about defeating the next Titan in the game, the way you might sometimes not care about improving your drop chance, or you might sometimes not care about speeding up your Wandoos. So many important game-defining rewards are hidden behind Titan fights that you have to do them, and you never don't care about doing them. And again, the longer you go through this game, the more important it is to scale up your adventure stats. It becomes really hard to keep up the longer you go. As I say, I used to think the Fu Manchu was better than the Beard, but over time I've come to realize that while the Fu Manchu is very, very powerful, ultimately I can replace it. There are other beards that do a similar job. The Beard, on the other hand, is another beard like the Fu Manchu that you basically never want to disable, but in the Beard's case, it is truly irreplaceable. There isn't anything else in the game which provides the same kind of help. And so that makes it an easy pick for S tier, best beard in the game. This brings us to the 7th and final beard. However, once again, I'm going to have to do a little bit of preamble before I get into it. For one, as some of you will know already, you have to unlock this beard, unlike the other 6, which are already available the second you unlock the menu. This beard is completely disabled until you beat the Troll Challenge all 7 times. And the Troll Challenge is quite possibly the single most difficult challenge in the game. Well, I say that. Realistically, probably the final 24-hour challenge is probably harder, but the main reason that one's difficult is just because the boss number you have to beat is extremely high. Not necessarily because what the challenge does to you is particularly grueling, you just have to have very high stats to beat it. Whereas the Troll Challenge, even if you do have high stats, is still grueling because you can lose your progress at any moment. Now this is important context to establish, not just to point out the fact that you have to work really hard to get this beard, but also to point out the fact that that means that once you have this beard, it's gonna be relatively late into the game. Again, I only personally got this beard shortly after defeating the 6th Titan in the game, and considering that you unlock this menu in the first place for beating the 4th Titan, that means that you're probably gonna be waiting a good few months before you're actually able to use this beard after unlocking the beards menu. And that does actually change how effective it is. Beyond that, while this beard, as you can probably guess, is related to money production, that means that I have to explain another menu which becomes the main use for your money later into the game. For defeating the third Titan in the game, you unlock the Gold Diggers menu. And essentially this is just a menu where you have a bunch of different stats that you can amplify temporarily by allowing a gold digger to sap money away from your time machine. The more money you allow them to sap away, the more of a boost they'll give to your different stats. You can spend large sums of money to upgrade your gold diggers, which not only helps you increase the maximum amount of gold they're allowed to siphon so that they can even further increase their boosts, but also gives a small percentage-based boost to the effectiveness of all gold diggers, including the ones you didn't even pay to upgrade. That being said, while siphoning more gold into the same stat does give more of a bonus, once again, like with everything else in this game, it has diminishing returns. And it's far more gold efficient to use more diggers at once than it is to put all your gold into one digger. With that said, say hello to the Golden Beard. Did I say the Beard was the slowest beard in the game earlier? My bad, guys. I meant to say the Golden Beard is. Because while once again the speed factor for this beard and the Beard are technically identical, the higher cost of magic bars and magic power leads to this beard leveling at a snail's pace, often having to spend longer than an entire day to reach level 1000, even with the level up speed of magic beards being more than doubled with diggers enabled. For each level you painstakingly earn for the Golden Beard, it grants a 0.2% boost to the gold output of the time machine, maxing out at tripling your income at level 1000 before diminishing returns kick in. Once again though, this is a beard where perma levels are king, because they grant 2.5 times more of a gold bonus compared to the regular active levels. To put it in perspective, while at base you're only tripling your gold output by maxing out this beard, if you got both the perma levels and the active levels to 1000, you'll be looking at a 15 times multiplier to your gold output, which is no joke. The income boost from this beard is amazing, but there's just one problem. At this point, gold kinda doesn't matter that much anymore. It's a shame because this beard really does make bank for you. But by the time I unlocked this beard, my GPS was already hitting the octillions. At that point, all gold really does is help you power up your diggers. But once again, diminishing returns on those diggers as the gold costs and levels increase leads to decillions in gold, only giving a small 1 or 2% boost to stats. Honestly, I think they really missed the mark with the Golden Beard with one small and seemingly insignificant decision. That being that the beard doesn't buff your gold drops like most income buffs. It buffs the GPS of your time machine directly. That means that this beard is effectively useless in the No Time Machine challenge, which is especially confusing considering it would have been insanely helpful in it. And by the time you have this beard, the last couple 24-hour challenge and No Time Machine challenges are almost certainly the only challenges in the game you haven't completed yet. The rest of them would be piss easy. All that said, this beard is still certainly worthwhile investing in, and it is an improvement to have it in your repertoire. It's just a little deflating, seeing how much of a boost it gives, how amazingly important that would have been if you had it a few months ago, but then seeing how useless that boost ends up being by the time you actually have the means to unlock it. If you had this beard from the start, it probably would be far more effective. Perhaps I'll find it more useful in evil mode. But so far in normal mode, it's been a beard that's strong on paper but underwhelming in practice because of how long it takes to unlock. All that said, it certainly hasn't been bad so far. I just wish there was more for me to do with all the resources it gives me. It gives me a lot of gold, I just don't have anything to do with it. Nothing that matters that much anyway. A lot of the times, these enormous gold bonuses effectively just add up to me getting 2% more XP for the rest of this run. And I mean, that matters. It doesn't not matter, but it certainly could matter maybe a little bit more, maybe? Ultimately, this can't be a bad beard, because it helps you progress, and while that is a simple thing, and while it doesn't help as much as the Fu Manchu or the Reverse Hitler, the beards that help you progress typically are the better ones. It's just out of the beards that help you progress, this is a clear candidate for the worst one. For that reason, it makes it slap bang into the middle of B tier. So that closes out my ranking. Now you can hopefully see a little bit why I wanted to set up this tier list in a slightly weird way. Because for one, it is very much on purpose that there are no beards in C tier, E tier, or F tier. As I say, every beard in this game is useful. Even the worst one by far, the Ladybeard, at least is worth putting some levels into. It's just going to be your lowest priority, is all. As well as that, because every single beard in the game is really effective except the Ladybeard, there isn't really a C tier one. There's none that are just kinda meh. I have strong feelings of some kind on basically every beard in the game. As well as that, I'm hoping you can see why I felt like the plus and minus tiers were important additions. Because before, my B tier was crammed with 3 beards. The beard cage, the golden beard, and the neckbeard. 3 beards which I do not consider to be equal in quality, and yet they would all be sharing a tier. And I couldn't move any of them up or down a tier without feeling like that wasn't really an honest representation of how effective they are. At the end of the day, all 3 of these beards are important to use and level in the right situations. But by the same token, it would feel dishonest of me to rank the beard cage at the same level as the neckbeard, when in all honesty, I used the neckbeard 3 times less than the beard cage, probably on average. And lastly, I thought it was appropriate to put the Fu Manchu at S-, since it is simultaneously a beard that you basically never want to disable, but also one which, in fairness, doesn't provide the biggest boost. As I say, it's usually only 2 extra bosses that you get because of it. Again, it's more the permanent bonus that's super useful with this beard, and that permanent bonus is insanely good for challenges, but outside of challenges, maybe not so much. As I said, beards are my favorite menu in the game. I especially like how they took energy and magic bars, a stat which before this point felt almost useless in how overpriced they were. And yeah, it's convenient to get energy and magic faster, but when you hit your cap so fast, it just feels like, what's the point? This menu not only made it feel like those previously overpriced stats actually had a point, but also made it feel like the game was still going somewhere even once you hit your cap, and had leveled everything to the levels you wanted to get it to. And as this video has shown, I feel like there's a lot of strategy to picking the correct beard to the correct situation. I feel like this menu is an especially good example of why NGU Idle is so unique as an idle game. With that said, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. I will get back around to thoroughly covering the menus I've skipped over by doing this video, don't worry, but I'll get around to them when I feel like doing them. With all that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.